हेलो एंड वेलकम बैक। आज हम बात करेंगे बैक के बारे में। तो बैक इज नॉट अ सिंगल मसल, इट्स अ ग्रुप ऑफ मसल्स so which contribute to different functions that can keep your entire upright posture stable, right? So to show you what the different parts of the back are, I have made an infographic uh, in real life. So this, do not judge. This is a back, apparently. And these are the muscles. I have highlighted them in different patterns. So as you can see, these muscles over here are the latissimus dorsi, or the lats. Then these muscles over here are called the rhomboids, or the rhomboids. Okay, these are what you call trapezoids. These are rear delts, which I also talked about in the shoulder video, so I don't need to talk about it again. They are included in the back because they are technically at the back of the back. Makes sense. Then we have, okay, we did this. Okay, then we have these straight lines, which are, they are not that far apart as such. They are the spinal erectors, and this over here is the lower back. Okay. So we'll talk about it individually, each muscle. So first let's talk about the latissimus dorsi, which is basically this, right? This muscle over here is the latissimus dorsi. So to train the latissimus dorsi, the function of the latissimus dorsi is to uh, take down your arm, pull down your arm, and pull it back, right? So this entire range of motion is the latissimus dorsi's forte. How do you train it? So there are three major exercises or variations of exercises, which is the lat pull down, a pull up, and a pull over. The lat pull down is basically you are sitting down, there is a bar above you, and you're pulling down the bar, as in the bar is attached to a cable machine. So you're pulling down the bar so that this function of the lat is trained. A pull-up is similar in the sense that there is a bar which is attached to a larger complex, and now you are pulling yourself up to the bar. So is also training the same muscle is the same, right? Because this motion is still happening, and resistance is still acting on this muscle. Pull over is basically a bar attached to a cable machine, and you're pulling it back, but like you're not bending your arms as such, so you're going down like that, and it works this entire range. I think it also works like depending on the angle that you're standing at, it can work from this range to this range. It can work an entire range, right? That is a more of an isolation movement. An isolation movement is something that only targets preferentially and largely, to a large extent, that only targets one particular muscle, is the isolated muscle. A compound exercise, on the other hand, is an exercise which involves not one, two or more than two exercises at once. So lat pull down or a pull up is kind of a compound exercise because it involves your lats, but also it involves other like rhomboids as well, very slightly, and it involves your biceps. Okay, so that's about lats. Now let's talk about the rhomboids. The rhomboids have the function of retracting your shoulder blades. What do I mean by that? Shoulder blades are basically there is your shoulder bone. Okay, so there is this arm, this there's bone over here, which is basically your arm. Okay, and it rests in the shoulder girdle. And now the shoulder girdle is attached to a shoulder blade. So it helps keep the shoulder stable when you move your arm. Okay. And there are muscles attached to that shoulder blade. There are muscles which make the function of the shoulder blade smooth. Will help function the shoulder blade, basically help it make it stable. So one of them is the rhomboids. So the function of that is basically to retract the shoulder blade. Basically the shoulder blade is that it retracts inside, that is uh, retraction. Protraction is when I do this, right? When I do this, it's retraction. When I do this, it's retraction. Next, so I have talked about rhomboids. Now, how do you train the rhomboids? So basically, you do a retraction. Now you can attach like adhesives to your shoulders and like do like very small retraction. It doesn't make sense, very comical. So better option is to do a row, which is basically you hold a bar in some position and you pull back. And so in this pulling back, naturally there is a retraction which takes place. Okay. Now a row also takes care of the lat portion. So at the end of the video, I'll also tell how all the muscles of the back conjugate together. There, it is not. So when you train the back, a lot of it is in a compound exercise. So lats have its own isolation exercise. Rear delts have its own isolation exercise. But a lot of the muscles of the back work in conjugation. So for a row, there are different grips. So you pull like that, right? So you can pull like this, which is called a protonated grip. Okay, and it will majorly target your upper back or your rhomboids. You can change your hand position a little bit, and now it will target more of the lats. As you change your hand position, your as you can see, your shoulder also goes in, right? Your shoulder goes down. So as you go down, your lats become more active, and you can pull with your lats more. So it goes from protonated group straight to a supinated group. Protonated group to protonated grip to a supinated grip. Okay. So I've talked about lats, I've talked about rhomboids. Now let's talk about the trapezoids, right? Which I don't know if you can tell, but I have, right? And this. So the traps basically work to shrug your shoulder up. The shoulder blade, it's to shrug those shoulders upward, and so that is the way how the traps work. The traps also work when you are holding a huge weight, and so when you're holding, the traps stretch, and in that stretch they have to stabilize the shoulder girdle, and so they work that way. So the way you can train the traps is by doing a movement which is called the shrug. You hold weights in your hand, then you shrug. Now, if you hold heavy enough weights, you're also getting a stretch, a weighted stretch down there. So that's also training the traps. And you're also shrugging. So it's like a both situation. So a lot of people also do power shrugs, which are basically you hold really heavy weights. Okay, so you're getting that weighted stretch, and then you shrug very aggressively. So you're also getting this flexure component. So that's shrugs. But most of the time, yeah, I think you can get a very great stimulus to your trapezoids or traps if you do more weighted stretch movements. Okay. Now we'll come to the spinal erectors. Right. The spinal erectors are important because there's a spine. It's flexible, but it can only take a certain amount of flexure, right? And how do we decide that? So there is a spine like this from the side, if you see. There are muscles on the side of this, okay? When you flex your spine under load and there is load somewhere over here, now how do you keep this stable? And that is where the muscles of spinal erectors work to keep the spine stable. How do you train these muscles? Well, you put them in a position where they have to work over time to keep the spine stable. So deadlift is a very great exercise for it. In basically these are your legs, this is your back. So you're basically lifting weight like that, right? So the main thing that is lifting the weight is a different, it's part of your legs kind of. But to keep the spine stable, the spinal erectors have to work very much. So that is one. A row variation, which is the barbell row, actually targets so many parts of the back. So there is spinal erectors, which it works. There is the upper back rhomboids, which it works because you're basically rowing and retracting your shoulder blades. And there is the lats because you're pulling at this angle, right? So these entire muscle systems get worked. Also the traps because you're holding a huge weight Sure, not like completely down, but here, so your traps are still getting stimulated. Also, the rear delt is because you're pulling at this angle. It's a whole package. The barbell row is such a fucking big whole package. It's juicy. It's so juicy, right? That's about the spinal erectors. And deadlifts. I told you, deadlifts is also a great compound exercise. It targets so many muscles. It's a wow exercise for that. Then we'll come to the lower back. Lower back is in conjugation with the spinal erectors. It works, it has the same function as the spinal erectors. It's just in lower in there. It's not entirely attached to that mid back kind of region. It's in the lower portion. It 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 is at the connection of the spine to your hip. So it's a very vulnerable point, right? So if that breaks, it's like, you know, but yeah, of course, the middle of the part is your load is that way, sure. But if that breaks, it's like your body has gone half. So lower back is a very important muscle to strengthen, and the way to strengthen that is by putting load on it, very controlled load on it, and that is deadlift or a barbell row or some variation of the deadlift. Even a squat trains it because you're still in position which your spine is under flexion. A squat with weight on your back. I mean, normal air squat, no weight on your back as such, unless you're a lot very fat. So that's been about the back. We will meet in the next video where I don't know what I'll be talking about, but we'll figure it out. Bye bye. Jai Shri Ram. Salute. Jai Hind.